Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari. Jai Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari. Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jai Vistapad Paramahansa Buddhikacharya Ashtotar to Sri Srimad Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Buddhikacharya Ashtotar to Sri Srimad Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Srimad Bhagavad Gita Ki Jai. Samaveda Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glory to Shri Guru and Gauranga. Darshan Prabhu. Hare Krishna. Can you move that chair one pillow to the left? To your right. To your right. Yeah. Just move it right there. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. On the second day of December 2019 in SanDiego, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is, translation and commentary, by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. And we are still in chapter 7, entitled Knowledge of the Absolute, text 29, page 341. The page numbers won't help you, Darshan. You have a different edition. But look at the top. You have a different edition. Yeah, so look at in the top, at the top, look at the top of your page. And you find there's a little thing, there's numbers up there in the middle, in the gutter. Yeah, 729. You're looking for 729. Yeah, me too. I have a lot of them. This is better for the mass. It's, anyway, this is the reason why we can keep it. You ready? 729? Yeah. Jara Marana? Yeah, okay. All right, 729, here we go. Jara Marana Mokshaya Mama Shritti Yatantiye Te Brahma Tadvadu Kritsnam Adhyatmam Karma Chakilam Jara Marana Mokshaya Mama Shritti Yatantiye Te brahmatan vidu kritsnam Adhyatmam karma chakilam Jada marana mokshaya Mama shritti yatanti ye Te brahmadadvatu kritsnam Adhyatmam karma chakilam. Parashakti. Jada manana mokshaya Mama shritti yatanti ye Te brahmatan vidhu kritsnam Adhyatmam karma chakilam Jada manana mokshaya Mama shritti yatanti ye Te brahmatan vidhu kritsnam Adhyatmam karma chakilam. Madhavendra. Jada madana mokshaya Mama shritti yatanti ye Te brahmatan vidhu kritsnam Adhyatmam karma chakilam. Go ahead, Darshan, want to try? Jada madana mokshaya yatanti Mama shritti yatanti ye Te brahmadan vidhu kritsnam Adhyatmam karma chakilam. Okay, I'll read through the word by words. Jada from old age, marana and death, mokshaya for the purpose of liberation, mam, me, ashritya, taking shelter of, yatanti, endeavor, yea, all those who, te, such persons, brahma, brahman, tat, actually that, viduhu, they know, kritsnam, everything, adhyatmam, transcendental, karma, activities, cha, also, akilam, entirely. Translation. Intelligent persons who are endeavoring for liberation from old age and death take refuge in me in devotional service. They are actually Brahman because they entirely know everything about transcendental activities. Purport. Birth, death, old age and diseases affect this material body, but not the spiritual body. There is no birth, death, old age and disease for the spiritual body. So one who attains a spiritual body becomes one of the associates of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and engages in eternal devotional service is really liberated. Aham Brahmasmi, I am spirit. It is said that one should understand that he is Brahman, spirit soul. This Brahman conception of life is also in devotional service as described in this verse. The pure devotees are transcendentally situated on the Brahman platform, and they know everything about transcendental activities. 4 kinds of impure devotees who engage themselves in the transcendental service of the Lord achieve their respective goals, and by the grace of the Supreme Lord, when they are fully Krishna conscious, they actually enjoy spiritual association with the Supreme Lord. But those who are worshippers of demigods never reach the Supreme Lord in his supreme planet. Even the less intelligent Brahman-realized persons cannot reach the supreme planet of Krishna, known as Goloka Vrindavan. Only persons who perform activities in Krishna consciousness, Mama-shritya, are actually entitled to be called Brahman, because they are actually endeavoring to reach the Krishna planet. Such persons have no misgivings about Krishna, and thus they are factually Brahman. Those who are engaged in worshipping the form of Archa of the Lord, or who are engaged in meditation on the Lord simply for liberation from material bondage, also know, by the grace of the Lord, the purports of Brahman, Adibhuta, etc., as explained by the Lord in the next chapter. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshu Unmidatam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkest of ignorance, But my spiritual master, Srila Prabhupada, opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisance unto him and all members of Sri Parampara, the disciplic succession. So, these are now, Krishna is now enumerating the benefits of knowing him, of serving him with determination. We're going back to text 27, where Krishna described Icha Dvesha Samutena Dvandva Mohena Bharata, O scion of Bharat, descendant of Bharat, O conqueror of the foe, all living entities are born into delusion, bewildered by the dualities arisen from desire and hate. And as I explained last when we dealt with this verse, Srila Prabhupada uses this verse to explain how we came to this plane from the spiritual world. Icha means to desire, Dvesha means to hate. And so we desire to enjoy like Krishna and we hate to serve him. Somehow that mentality arises. And that gives rise, samutena, to the delusion of duality, dvandva moha. Dvandva moha. Meaning that we, as explained Rajendranatha Prabhu last night, he quoted the verse about the origin of fear from the 11th canto, excuse me. And he, Bhayam Dvitiya Abhinavishitak Syad. Vidya is this related to dvandva, the duality. Vidya means absorbed in the material world, forgetting that it belongs to Krishna, forgetting its relation to Krishna. That's the source of our fear, and it arises when we turn our back on Krishna. Ishara petasya, that's in the next line. So that all is caused by our unexplainable arising of our sense of independence from Krishna. So now that gives rise to the dvandva moha, the delusion of duality. And the delusion of duality has two aspects. One is that there's something separate from Krishna, and the other is that there's heat and cold, pleasure and pain, and that should be the source of our decisions about how to act in this material world. In other words, we get caught up in the modes of nature. So, dvandva mohena bharata, from that bewilderment, then all of living beings are sammoham, completely bewildered. We forget all about Krishna, we think that we're this body, we identify with things related to the body as ours or belonging to us or enemies, all related. And in that mentality, completely bewildered, we enter into this world. Sarge yanti literally means we come into this creation, and we've been there ever since. So, how to get rid of it? That's the next verse, the text 28. Yesham, tu. Now this word tu, which becomes TV because the next word begins with a vowel, namely anta. Yesham tvantakatam papam. When the sinful activity is ended, completely finished, and one is practicing just punya karma, pious activity, and that's also in the realm of devotional service, obviously, then one can be near mukta, free from the dvandva moha, from the bewilderment of duality. Basically thinking that you're not connected to Krishna and this world isn't connected to Krishna. And such persons can worship Krishna with a firm vow, with determination. That's what this whole text 28 is about. And the result of that is that you become free from old age and death because you take shelter of Krishna again. In other words, we have to return to Krishna's shelter. And the rest of this verse and the last verse of the chapter describes what you understand because of that. Now it's interesting that this whole chapter begins with this idea of knowing Krishna, right? How do you know Krishna? Look at text 1. Maya asaktamanaparta yogam yunjan manashaya asangsayam samagam yata gyasatsi tachinu yasasmi, you can know. Now hear, O son of Pritha, how by practicing yoga in full consciousness of me, with mind attached to me, you can know me in full, free from doubt. So it's all about knowing the absolute truth, which in the previous chapter was done through this rigid and very austere practice of yoga, which is impractical for us in this age. But we still have to be yogis, and we still need to have a way of knowing Krishna, because we've forgotten him. So the whole idea is, boy, how can we know him again? How can we reconnect? So now in this chapter he has another approach, and he doesn't talk about that process of yoga, but he does talk about yoga. Because that's in that first verse, right? Yogam yunjan vanashaya. Yoga means to connect. Now here it says self-realization by madashraya, by taking shelter of me. Notice that's exactly what he's talking about in the text 29, madashritya. Ashritya and ashraya is this different form of the word. So one can know me, you can know me in full, free from doubt. So the whole thing is about knowing Krishna, but it's not so easy. Because as long as we want to try to exploit this world and enjoy separately from Krishna, and that assumes or that necessitates forgetting Krishna. You can't understand that Krishna is the supreme proprietor, he's the supreme friend, he's the Lord and Master, and yet I want to compete with him. That understanding has to be occluded. In other words, you have to forget that. That's what Mahamaya is for. She helps you forget. She helps you stay in illusion. But ultimately, what do you experience? Jara and marana, old age and death and birth and disease. In other words, that's the ultimate result. Just the opposite. You want to do it to enjoy, but instead you suffer. So that's what surrendering to Krishna again enables us to do. Enables us to escape these horrors of being bound in a material body and forgetting Krishna. And then the positive benefits, we understand Brahman and Adhyatman and Karma. And these are all different topics that will be explained. Hare Krishna. Welcome, Jesse. And at the beginning of chapter 8, Arjuna will ask what these all are about. So basically we've gone through this whole chapter. In between, Krishna has given us an explanation of this material world as his energy. He starts with where we're at. We're surrounded by earth, water, fire, air, ether. We don't separate it as such, but that's what it is, right? Our own bodies are made of that. What is it made of? Solid matter, gases, of all kinds, liquids flowing through, right? And energy. You've got your digestive fire. There's fire in there, right? And there's space. And of course, mind, intelligence, and ego. These are all elements of our body as well as outside. And Krishna says, those are my energies. You can't get away from me. You're everything around you is me. And you yourself are mine. You're also part of my energy. Apare mitastvanyam prakatim vidime param. These other energies are apara. Oh, I'm sorry, we're on page 341. Next to the last verse of the chapter. So Krishna, right away, he's saying that you've forgotten me, but you're intimately connected to me, both through your body and through you yourself are part of my energy, marginal energy. Para Shakti, Para Prakriti. So now, then he says, there's nothing in existence beside these two energies, and therefore I am the source of everything. Everything you see. In other words, I'm right in front of you in the form of my energies, but you have forgotten about me because of your desire to enjoy separately. So now I'm informing you of the truth. Now live in that truth. But the only way to do it is to understand that we're spirit and train the mind and the body to use the things that we are surrounded by in Krishna's service. Otherwise, we're going to try to use them in our service. And that means we'll forget again. That's what Maya does. You need a cushion or something? Yeah, I know you got a big built-in cushion there, but maybe you need a... Yeah. Which verse are you talking about here? 20. 29, okay. Transcendental activities. Well, I have to look at what Prabhupada originally had. I can answer that. I can't answer it off the top of my head. Yeah, I'll have to research that. But that's interesting that you mentioned it. Right. Yeah. That's a good point. It may be a mistake here. We'll research that. Te brahma tadvita kutsnam adhyatmam karma chakridam. Yeah. Well, I'm going to look into that because you have a point there. So we'll research that and I'll get back to you tomorrow or as soon as I can. Okay, so Prabhupada in the commentary here, he's emphasizing first that one has to understand that he's spirit. He picks up on the first thing by taking shelter of Krishna. Te Brahma tadvidu Krishnam. They understand everything about Brahman, right? And so the first step, the first thing you usually learn when you're used to when you learn the ashram, Aham Brahmasmi, I'm spirit. You're not that body. You're pure spirit soul. So that's perfectly accurate. But the Mayavadis confuse that because I'm Brahman and we want to merge into the Brahman, then I'm the supreme. And if I just get enough knowledge, I'll return to my original Brahman platform, and be free from birth and death. But just understanding your spirit is not enough. As Prabhupada says in the fifth chapter, we have to act like spirit. If we don't act on the basis of being spiritual rather than this body, then we'll forget. You'll just forget, and you'll be absorbed in the external world. So, acting according to spirit, that's what this whole movement is about. That's what the whole process of bhakti is about. Giving you a practical way that you can act as spirit. What to hear, what to chant, what to do with your active and your knowledge-acquiring senses. That's the whole process of training the mind to, again, remember Krishna. The whole result of it is to always remember Krishna constantly. And that's not possible if we're trying to exploit Krishna's energy. So we have to use that very energy, beginning with our own bodies, our own ears and tongue and voice, to connect to Krishna. And gradually that mistake that we made, Iccha Dvesha Samutena, we reverse that. And we become free from the delusions of duality and the delusion entirely. And then we can know Brahman, we can know karma and everything. That's the idea. Okay, shall we read the last one? This is more benefits, what you can know. Sadibhutadi daivam mam Sadi yagyam chaye viduhu Piyanakade pichamam Te vidu yukta chetasaha. Those in full consciousness of me, who know me, the Supreme Lord, to be the governing principle of the material manifestation, of the demigods, and of all methods of sacrifice, can understand and know me, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, even at the time of death. Purport. Persons acting in Krishna consciousness are never deviated from the path of entirely understanding the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In the transcendental association of Krishna consciousness, one can understand how the Supreme Lord is the governing principle of the material manifestation, and even of the demigods. Gradually, by such transcendental association, one becomes convinced of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and at the time of death, such a Krishna-conscious person can never forget Krishna. Naturally, he is thus promoted to the planet of the Supreme Lord, Goloka Vrindavan. The 7th chapter particularly explains how one can become a fully Krishna-conscious person. The beginning of Krishna consciousness is association of persons who are Krishna-conscious. Such association is spiritual and puts one directly in touch with the Supreme Lord. And by His grace, one can understand Krishna to be the Supreme Personality of Godhead. At the same time, one can really understand the constitutional position of the living entity and how the living entity forgets Krishna and becomes entangled in material activities. By gradual development of Krishna consciousness in good association, the living entity can understand that due to forgetfulness of Krishna, he has become conditioned by the laws of material nature. He can also understand that this human form of life is an opportunity to regain Krishna consciousness, and that it should be fully utilized to attain the causeless mercy of the Supreme Lord. Many subjects have been discussed in this chapter: the man in distress, the inquisitive man, the man in want of material necessities, knowledge of Brahman, knowledge of Paramatma, liberation from birth, death, and diseases, and worship of the Supreme Lord. However, he who is actually elevated in Krishna consciousness does not care for the different processes. He simply directly engages himself in activities of Krishna consciousness and thereby factually attains his constitutional position as an eternal servitor of Lord Krishna. In such a situation, he takes pleasure in hearing and glorifying the Supreme Lord in pure devotional service. He is convinced that by his doing so, all his objectives will be fulfilled. This determined faith is called Dravida, and it is the beginning of Bhakti Yoga, or transcendental loving service. That is the verdict of all scriptures. This 7th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita is the substance of that conviction. Thus end the Bhaktivedanta purports to the 7th chapter of the Srimad Bhagavad Gita in the matter of knowledge of the Absolute. So, Srila Prabhupada is ending on this purport and the chapter by discussing the subject of faith, really. When in text 28, when Krishna says, one who overcomes this dvandva moha, the bewilderment of duality, can worship me with firm vow, drita vrata. That drita vrata comes only when one's faith is very strong. You may remember that Krishna, he gave us the formula in the middle of the chapter, in text 14, that daivi esha gunamayi mamamaya duratya mameviye papadinte mayamayam talantite. That this material energy, composed of the 3 modes, is my energy, and therefore it's divine. Gunamayi is composed of the modes of nature. And you can't cross over it just on your own effort. If you understand, yes, I'm entrapped in this material world, birth and death, and I want to get free, you can't do it on your own, because Maya is too strong. It's just, the example is given right in the purport. Guna also means rope. You're tied hands and legs, How are you going to free yourself? You have to be freed by someone who's freed already, and that's the spiritual master, transcendentalist, who can impart the faith in you to practice the principles by which you can get free, by which you can surrender to Krishna. So, but then after that, he says, kamais taista rita jnana, that one has to have sufficient knowledge in order to perform that surrendering. In other words, it has to have faith that Krishna is there and that I can change my life. If you don't have that faith, you're not going to do it. So, just knowledge is not going to help, because your knowledge can be distorted by the modes of nature. And so he begins to describe the problem of having your faith in something other than Krishna and worshipping that. He says that kamais taista rita jnana. Here again we're talking about knowledge, which is a theme here. Beginning to talk about you can know me in full. At the end, here's how you can know me. So, kamais taista rita jnana papadninte anya devata. That those whose knowledge is stolen away by material desire, various kinds of material desires, they worship other gods besides me. Papadyante anya devata. Niyamamastaya prakritya niyataksaya. They are controlled by their own natures. Whatever mode is most predominant, then they'll have faith in worshiping that. I remember when I lived in Miami for 6 years. We had a lot of devotees who would come up from Brazil. In fact, some of them were working in the BBT with us. And so they would tell us stories, of kind of very prominent ghost worship that would take place in the forest there. People would go out, and there was a whole tradition, I forget what it's called, and they would offer liquor and cigars, to some ghost in the tree or something. It was, hundreds of people. What is that? Day of the Dead. There you go. And they had faith in that. And so and whatever they get, they're thinking it's coming from the tree or the tree personality, whatever. But it's coming from Krishna. That's what he says. So he speaks about faith. Young vapi smarang bhava chajajante kalevanam. No, sorry. How's it go? Forgetting all my shlokas these days. Getting too old. Okay, so here it is. On purport here. Bahunam Jamanamante, that's it. That those who, I'm sorry, I misquoted that. After the Daivyesha, he says, he has those who don't surrender to me. The famous verse. Who doesn't surrender to me? Why wouldn't you surrender to Krishna if you can get out of this bondage of birth and death? Because their minds are distorted by the modes of nature. Namam dushkadano mudha babanyante anya devata, naradama, excuse me, maya apirita jnanasaram bhavamashrita. That the four kinds of people who are grossly foolish, they're miscreants, grossly foolish, mudhas, lowest among mankind, knowledge is stolen by illusion, partake of the atheistic nature of demons, they don't surrender unto me. So that's kind of the negative side. But on the positive side, Chaturvada bhajante mam. There's four kinds of people who do surrender to me. Now this is very important because most people who come to Krishna consciousness, they're not very, enlightened completely and full of knowledge. They're curious, they met a devotee, he was a nice person, they wanted to find out more, or they're in trouble, people who know, beg, pray to Krishna, please relieve some problem, that's a common thing. So there's four kinds, Artha Jigyasa, those who are troubled, those who are curious, those who are looking for some material benefit, and the real jnanis who know what they're doing, which Krishna says those are the best. And after praising them for a couple of verses, he has this important verse, after many, many births, one who is fortunate, he surrenders to me. One who is not only fortunate, but full of knowledge. Jnanavan mampapadyate. Not understanding that Vasudeva is everything. As he began the chapter, I'm all of the energies, I'm you also. Where is there not Krishna? But someone like that is very rare, because the general tendency is, well, I'll pray to God for some material thing, But really, surrendering on the basis of true knowledge and dedication of oneself is rare. On the other hand, those whose knowledge is stolen away by all kinds of material desires, they surrender to different gods. You see. And then yo yam yam tanum bhakta, whatever you want to worship, and this is why you can make up things. There's religions being created on the internet every day. You can get followers for any old thing, right? And they'll send in your contributions. Yeah. So there's all kinds of. The key is faith. Somehow faith is imparted in something that's not supreme. And then Krishna, from within the heart, he makes that faith strong. If you're exposed, the whole thing is association. If someone is very, charismatic, or speaks very well, or is very convincing, or some or other, or a magician who produces something, they'll inspire faith because people are ignorant, they're helpless, and with that faith, you'll perform very ardent worship. And and whatever they get, they think it's coming from what they worship, but it's really coming from Krishna. So it's indirect. They're not getting benefit of Krishna worship. And these benefits are all temporary. And so one who places his faith and worships something temporary is ultimatism, not very intelligent. Because we're spirit soul. We're looking for eternal happiness and eternal life. What good are these temporary benefits we may get from material worship? You see the problem. So then he has the concluding line here. Those who worship the gods, or the ghosts, or whatever you worship, you'll go to them. He reiterates this in the 9th chapter. Same words. Devan devya jo yanti, madbhakta yanti mamapi. But those who worship me come to me. So what's the advantage? Because if you go to Krishna, you don't have to come back. You can actually be reinstated in your eternal life of bliss and knowledge. No more of these antavat palam, means these temporary benefits. We want the eternal benefit. The Shreya, the Shreya that Arjuna asked for in text 7 of chapter 2. Please tell me for sure how I can attain my eternal benefit. So that's what this is all about. And so then, he criticizes those who are the impersonalists who think that Krishna is derived from the Brahman. They don't know. That's a big mistake. And he says, I don't show myself to everybody. I reserve the right to be invisible. So they can become completely convinced that I don't exist, because they're not approaching me in the proper way. They're mudas, again, nabijanati, they can't know me. Remember, that's the theme here. And then he says, I know everything in the past, I know everything's happening now, I know everything in the future, I know all beings, but me no one knows. Now this seems to be a contradiction, because at the beginning, he says, now I'm going to tell you how you can know me in full, right? Now he says, but nobody knows me. Nobody can really know Krishna in full, but we can know him to the limit that's possible for an individual soul. And that'll be sufficient for us to maintain our faith and to go back to Godhead. Krishna will reveal himself. And then we come to the final verses which we just read about, the reason why we're bewildered is because we turned away from Krishna, we were averse to serving him, and we really wanted to enjoy separately. That tendency, because we're marginal energy. This is a very important point. Lord Chaitanya was asked by Sanatana Goswami, he says, who am I? Sanatana Goswami was already enlightened, but he's asking for us. Who am I? Why am I suffering? If I don't know these things, what does my knowledge really mean? They think I'm a learned scholar, but I don't know anything. So Lord Chaitanya answered in this immortal verse. It's Krishna himself in the form of Lord Chaitanya. Jivera swarupoi. What is the swarup, the real nature, eternal nature of the soul? Jivera swarupoi, Krishnera nityadas. We're eternally servants of Krishna. But then he goes on. Krishnera tatasta shakti beda bed prakash. Those 2 points are very important also. We are the marginal energy of Krishna. We are by nature spiritual. That'll never change. This is our eternal nature. But because we're minute and because we're marginal means we can be controlled by the external energy or by the spiritual energy. Our natural position is to be within the spiritual energy, within the environs of Krishna in the spiritual world, in Goloka Vrindavan, and being eternally engaged in pastimes. This morning, Balaram Prabhu wondered about the word pastime. What is that word? Is that a real English word? He didn't know about it. I said, yes, it's a word. It simply means play. It's something that is entirely voluntary. It's in contrast to work, responsibility. I have to do it. I don't want to do it. No, it means something you want to do, and it's all you want to do. And people try to do that, when they go off on the weekend and go skiing or whatever they do, this is my play. I'm doing it entirely. But it's temporary. Then you got to go back to work. But pastime is what Krishna does all the time. Whatever he does is pastime. Nobody can force him to do anything. Whatever he does, he wants to do. Even killing the demons and all that. That's fun. Isn't that? He doesn't. So we want to get back to real pastimes, lila, and that can only happen when we get reinstated in our natural state. So that means getting free of the bewilderment here, the bewildering energy, moha, and that comes from stopping our sin, our activities against Krishna's will, and only doing punya. Not material punya, but spiritual punya. Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he made the distinction. It's called bhaktyunmukhi sukriti. Bhaktyunmukhi means that kind of sukriti or pious activity that awakens bhakti, the real dharma. That can also be called punya. So that's what Krishna is talking about here. If one has ended all sinful activities, just doing punya, in other words, anukul yasa sankalpa praktikul yasa varjanam, the first aspects of surrender to Krishna, six aspects, is to accept those things favorable for devotional service and reject those things and those activities that are unfavorable. Sometimes that's difficult. That's called austerity, because we're so habituated, conditioned to act in the contrary way. So, the 4 regular principles, oh my God, how am I going to do that, Well, you can pray for the strength, If you chant Hare Krishna sincerely and you associate with devotees, then you can get the strength to do those things. To give up illicit sex, intoxication, gambling, meat eating. The easiest one is meat eating. You can have a nice prasadam, then it's not so difficult. So that I was just reading a horrific article about the opioid crisis. I took over this one town, small town in Ohio, and practically they went back to the class of 2000, high school class that graduated in 2000. Practically everybody was either directly involved in getting hooked on these opioids, or they knew somebody who overdosed or was in rehab, they went to jail, so many things. Why is that? I mean, these being aware of what's going on out there can make us thankful for the protection of Krishna consciousness. I've been doing this so long. I remember in the 80s, early 80s, when the AIDS crisis hit. You remember that? When HIV started coming in, I said, boy, what Prabhupada has protected us from. And there was shortly thereafter the crack, cocaine, all throughout New York City. I was living still in Miami, And people were, it was devastating. These are powerful, you can imagine. All your friends are doing it. It's the latest thing. You crush up the pills and snort them, And before you know it, you're hooked. You're totally hooked. These are opioids. This is heroin, in pill form. And we're just chanting Hare Krishna. I mean, not that we're gloating or anything. It's a tragic thing. But this is the protection of Krishna. He's protecting you from getting attracted to things in this material world that will devastate you, that just destroy you. And so this is part of the benefits of being Krishna conscious, is being able to find that source of happiness and peace and within yourself. You're contacting Krishna within yourself. You're carrying around with you, or within yourself, the reservoir of pleasure. Remember that pamphlet? That's Krishna. But no, we don't know it. There's a wonderful prayer of Akrura. Akrura is known as the exemplar of prayers, right? There's 4 or 5 sets of prayers of Akrura on the way to Vrindavan, on the way from Vrindavan, taking Krishna and Balaram to Mathura. So it's during those prayers, when he's praying to Sankirtan, whoever he sees in the water, and Krishna and Balaram are sitting on the chariot, those who know the pastimes. And so he offers these prayers. And what he says is, he identifies himself as a conditioned soul, which great souls often do. Prahlad did the same thing, so he can teach us how to pray. So he's saying, Anityanatma dukkeshu viparhi matiyaham tvandvaram astamo vishnu najani tvatmanak priyam. My dear Lord, I am also a conditioned soul, and everything is upside down. It's in reverse. I'm taking anityanatma dukkeshu. That which is temporary, I'm taking to be permanent. My body, my family, all of that. Hare Krishna. Do you need a chair? You need to take your shoes off. Yeah, you can come in. I think she was here before. Wasn't she? So anityanatma, that which is not me, I'm taking to be me. That which is sources of dukkha, misery, I'm taking to be sources of pleasure. Viparya means reversed. It means everything backwards. And therefore, in this illusion, I'm trying to enjoy these dualities of this world, dvandva aramal, and then entering further and further into darkness. And the greatest tragedy is I've forgotten completely that you're my dearmost master and friend. And then he gives an analogy that's very important for us. Yadabado jalam hitva parichannam turudbhavai. I forget the Sanskrit for the rest, but I know what it means. He said, just like a foolish animal, visualize an oasis in a desert. And a foolish human being or an animal is standing on the edge of that oasis, very thirsty, and looking out into the desert. Now, right at the feet of that person is a pool of water that's been overgrown with various plants and things. You can't see it. But out in the desert, there's a mirage, a wonderful pool of water that's really not there. And so you run out into the desert. We're just like that. We have with us, as close as can possibly be, an ocean of nectar, of bliss. With Krishna is in our heart, right? Premanjanacharita bhakti vilochanena. He's there as Shyamasundar. But we don't know that. We've forgotten him. We can't see him. We can't perceive him. And we're looking out into this world for pleasure and security and safety, which isn't there. But it seems to be. And so we're running out. This is, Prahlad says the same things. Nate vadu svartakadimi visham durashayaye bahir artamanina. Bahir means externally. Those who don't understand that Vishnu or Krishna is their ultimate goal in life, you see, They have adopted so many missions, so many external things to work for. They're called Bahir Arta Manina. And it's the blind leading the blind. They're encouraged in these futile endeavors by other blind people who don't know the truth. And you have a whole career in building up some kind of a identity and money and whatever it is. And it's all simply a big bubble. It's a big mirage. As you get older and older and then you get facing death, you have to leave the whole thing behind. What did you accomplish? Zilch. All you did was keep yourself bound up in this world of suffering. It all turns to dust. But what you have in Krishna, in your assets in Krishna consciousness, doesn't turn to dust. He assures us right in the beginning in chapter 2, Neha bhikamanashosti pratyavayo navidyate. In this endeavor, spiritual endeavor of contacting Krishna, there's no loss, there's no diminution. Even if you just perform 1% or less, that stays with you. Hare Krishna. Please, have a seat. We got a chair for you. You okay? Good. So, back to our the end of this chapter here. So, here he's encouraged us to overcome this bewilderment by surrendering to him again. Worshipping him with firm faith. Bhajante mandridhavrata. Then one can understand. First, one can overcome old age, disease, and death, which is a great boon. And you can be in knowledge. What is really Brahman? What is the Atma? What is karma? And then he goes on to the last verse, which we'll have to save for tomorrow because it's getting late. But tomorrow we'll read that verse, and maybe we can begin chapter 8 because they really go together. He says you'll know all about Adibhuta, Adidaiva. There's this principle, Adibhuta, Adidaiva, and Adi Atma, which are the principles of the self, the principles of physical bodies, and the principles of the Daiva or the divine. And we're always dealing with them, although we don't call them that. But understanding what they're all about is important also. But most important is Priyanakale Pichamam. In the end, Priyanakale means the death, the end time. One can know me, you see, by all of this endeavor, which is really what it's all about. How can we know Krishna? He ends with that same thing that he began the chapter with. You can know me in full. Here he says, if you surrender unto me, you can understand me. But only by surrender. That's what it's all about. And on that auspicious note, we'll have to adjourn for the kirtan.